Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. Patrick Johnston covers the Canucks for the Province and Post Media. He's at Rogers Arena taking in the first morning skate before the season and home opener against the Calgary Flames.
Can you give me a fries
on Wednesday?
Are they making fries yet behind you?
Absolutely.
You can only pick one thing though.
Oh, okay.
That is one drink, one treat.
Okay,
Dad
okay,
rolls.
Dad.
Dad
Okay,
rolls. Yeah, got it. First things first. Optional morning skate to start the year. Shouldn't this be the one skate where everyone's present and accounted for? Petey and Garland opting out up front, Forbert and Hughes opting out. On the blue line.
They know what they need to know, I guess. I don't know. I think we all were pleasantly surprised to see JT Miller out there because, he just wants to play the games.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. I don't know. I mean, everybody prepares in their own way. And I guess those guys just want to sit and think about the game.
And if Garland's a little nicked, probably best that he saves everything that he has for the game and doesn't bother even going for a twirl, correct?
I guess. Yeah. I mean, we don't really know what's there. I mean, my assumption was it was some sort of maybe leg thing. He looked fine on Friday when we saw him before the game.
Yeah.
And just keeping it safe.
Yeah.
Okay. Hit you with the poll question. Do you have Stanley Cup expectations for this club, Patrick?
I have to stick with my negative Nelly reputation. I seem to be developing, so I'm going to say no.
That's not terribly negative.
Care to expand, Patrick?
Well, look how good the team is. The favorites in the division are, and look how good the other two, the least two hot teams in the Central Division are. And I just don't think the Canucks are as good as those teams. I think they're pretty good. I just don't think they're quite there. Listen, things could change, and obviously the trade on the weekend to create the cap space opens the potential to add somebody really interesting at the trade deadline. And so I am ready to change my opinion based on who that person is. But at the moment, I don't see it. I think they need at least another guy on the blue line. I think that's more than anything is the question for me.
What are you excited to see unfurled as early as game number one? Is it the power play? Is it who gets penalty kill assignments? Is it just the chemistry of the top six? What are you most intrigued with tonight?
I think it's the power play. Yeah, I mean it's power play in the top six mix that you just mentioned. Yeah, like I am intrigued to see how it all shakes out as a forward group at 5-on-5. Danton Heinen as a theory, like I said, he is what they. He certainly looks like what they wanted Ilya Mikheyev to be. And Jake DeBrusk and Daniel Sprong are much more interesting linemen. Obviously, Kuzmenko was a really interesting linemate for Pettersson that one season. But then last year, PD had no one. And I think, obviously you need the player himself to raise his game, but I think on the whole suffered for it. The number of opportunities he set up for Mikheyev that he couldn't bury. I mean, the idea is that Sprong and DeBrusk are going to bury those chances, and we won't be having the same discussion as we did last year about production. So, and then the power play, obviously. And the power play is kind of everything. They've been a middle of the pack. It was interesting on the weekend looking at the actual reality of talking about Bo Horvat. They were pretty good with Bo Horvat, but they actually roughly have scored at roughly the same rate. What they really need is to become a dominant power play, period. And they have the talent, and they have the tools, and that's just about being consistent. And last year there was too much of the same thing. Being consistent in your finishing, but being dynamic in your approach. And last year they were too much of the same, and they scored okay, but they didn't put them into a new tier. And if you think about it, in the playoffs, if they had a power play that was elite, not just very good, that makes a difference. And that is how the Edmonton Oilers in the end beat the Kings in the first round. As poor as the Kings were, they still kind of battled them to a draw 5-on-5. And it was all about the Oilers being able to score on the power play. And that is the forever lesson. And that's I would like to see how things go here.
Hey, since you're talking special teams there, we were having this discussion yesterday. Lindholm, their top PK used forward last year by time on ice, shorthanded time on ice per game, obviously not there anymore. Joshua, their number 3 guy, who will miss this game and several more as he recovers. Bluger, Oman, Pettersson, Suter were the next guys up, but then there's the newcomers. How do you see the PK units
Well, we assume that Kiefer Sherwood will be in the mix. Jake DeBrusk obviously has a reputation for being a two-way guy. The lesson was it's about what you actually do when you're on the ice, not as much. There are some guys who really shouldn't penalty kill, and one of those guys was Bo Horvat and probably JT Miller. They just don't seem to get it done. But it's being able to keep those cross ice passes down. Think about how badly that went a couple seasons ago. They could not keep the puck from going across the ice. Bruce Boudreau lamented this endlessly. Rick Tocchet has fixed a lot of that. His staff has done a really good job sorting that out. And so if you're looking to get it done, personnel matters, sure, but it's about what you're doing in the moment. And it was a pretty decent group last year. So, and the guys you just mentioned, obviously Dakota Joshua is one of their best penalty killers, but the other guys are pretty good at it, and Pettersson's good at it. The group that's here should be pretty solid. It's just about finding 2% improvement in all areas. That's the difference between great and very good.
Yeah, and should note that both Forbert and Desharnais were heavy PK minute guys on the blue line for Edmonton and Boston last year.
What do you think Artur Shilov's mentality is like going into this? Do you think he's nervous about this and trying to stake the early claim to the throne?
He's a guy that, I think back to that conversation I had with him late in the season where he talked about looking at the fact that he didn't know when the opportunity was going to come, but he always needed to be ready. And now he's one of the guys, but the pressure's on because they signed Kevin Lankinen. And at some point, Thatcher Demko is going to come back, and there's going to be a debate over who's going to be the backup and what the fight for starts is going to be. So he is as prepared as anyone will ever be for this scenario. And, he's a guy who believes in himself. Of course he does. He's an NHL goalie. So, yeah, he's a guy that comes into this with the pressure on, with the stakes. He knows what the stakes are. And I don't think there's any reason to think that he won't thrive in that scenario.
So many new wingers here, and wingers sort of, or at least theoretically, in most cases, are reliant on centermen to get them the puck. How quickly do you think the gelling can take place? Because really, you've got a new winger on just about every line, right?
It'll take a while. It's the way kind of preseason spills into the regular season, and we get so focused in on how few preseason games they play. But the truth is that the first month of the season is teams sorting themselves out, right? Like that's a general rule now. So it won't be until November, I think, that we really get a real sense of what this team is. Obviously, they'd like to start gelling, have the focus already. But the truth is, it's just the reps. You got to get the reps in. You got to go on the road a little bit. That Pittsburgh Penguins game on October 26th, maybe we'll start seeing it by then. That's 2.5 weeks from now. That might be the earliest, but yeah, it's a thing that's been true since the teams were playing 11 preseason games. I've been reading going back and looking at some old past stuff, looking at the 93-94 team, and they started really well, right? But they were taking advantage of teams that were not looking like they pulled themselves together. And of course, that group had been together. So, it's just, there's a constant flux. I don't, if they aren't looking like themselves by the middle of November, then you can start to get worried because, of course, then you're starting to run into American Thanksgiving and the realities of points and all that.
Last question, predictions, buddy. Where points finished in the division and playoffs. How do you see this season going?
Well, it's a 100-point team. I even last year, like for all the kind of skepticism we had out of the box, right? Like the scoring, the goaltending was fantastic. The bounces they were getting was amazing. They were very consistent picking up points all season. So even a slight step back from that, you're still looking at a 100-point team.
Like you mean literally 100 points, like 100, 101?
Well,
that's not a
101.
Yeah.
No, that's give or take. Yeah, if they sit at 95, you're obviously sitting near the edge of the playoffs.
Flirting, yeah.
This team should be solidly in the playoffs. I don't know if they're as good as Edmonton, but they won the division last year. I expect they'll likely finish second, just given I don't expect Edmonton to stumble out of the blocks the way they did last year. I think this is a team that will be in the mix for the division title, but is unlikely to repeat as division champions. But again, a 100-point team is a pretty good team, and I think they, like I said, if they make some interesting moves at the deadline, this could be a team to watch in the playoffs. But we're not there yet.
You got work to do. Thank you for this, fella.
Take care,
Let
guys.
me know if you see any bunting there at Rogers.
Of course. All right.